When we talk about unfair advantages, people often jump straight to the obvious: money, connections, access to elite networks. But here's the truth: most people overlook self-mastery is the ultimate unfair advantage. It's not about what's happening around you, it's about what's happening within you. You can be the smartest person in the room, have the best degree or the most impressive resume, but if you can't master your impulses, your attitude, or your emotions, you're playing the game on hard mode. The people who win long term aren't the ones with the best circumstances, they're the ones who have trained themselves to respond, not react. They've developed discipline, emotional control, and internal focus. And in today's noisy, distracted world, that level of control is rare. That's why it gives you an edge: self-mastery. It starts with the most basic and most avoided habit: self-discipline. Waking up when you say you will, showing up when you don't feel like it, doing the work when no one's watching. That's where most people fall off. They confuse motivation with consistency. But motivation is temporary, it's emotional. Self-discipline is a decision you make every day, and when you train that muscle day in and day out, you start to stand out. Not because you're flashy, but because you're reliable. You become someone others can count on, someone you can count on. Think about the most successful people you admire. Do you think they got there by always feeling inspired and enthusiastic? No, they got there by showing up on the days that it was hard. They trained themselves to perform without waiting for permission from their emotions. That's self-awareness. They're in action. It's not sexy, it's not loud, but it's powerful, and it compounds. Let's talk about emotional intelligence for a second. If you don't understand your emotions, they will control you. If you don't understand other people's emotions, you'll constantly misinterpret situations and relationships. Emotional intelligence is about recognizing what's happening inside of you and then choosing how to respond, not just in the moment, but in alignment with your long-term goals. That's not just maturity, it's strategy, because when other people are reacting impulsively, burning bridges, losing control, making short-term decisions, you stay grounded, you keep your power. That's what leaders do. Self-awareness is another piece of the puzzle. Knowing who you are, what triggers you, what patterns are holding you back. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. When you know your blind spots, you stop pretending, you get honest, and that honesty leads to growth. Because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. The person who's constantly seeking to understand themselves more deeply is already ahead of 90% of the world, because most people are running from their own reflection. They rather stay busy than face the truth, but the truth is where transformation begins. Here's the kicker: self-mastery is available to anyone. You don't need permission, you don't need money, you don't need status, you just need the willingness to commit to the inner work. That's what makes it an unfair advantage, because most people will never do it. They'll chase shortcuts, strategies, and surface level hacks. But if you build the kind of internal strength that can uncertainty, that can stay focused under pressure, that can decide rather than drift, you will win. Not overnight, but inevitably. In a world obsessed with doing, the person who can be still, present, intentional is rare, and rare is valuable. Self-mastery won't always get you applause, but it will give you something better: quiet confidence, inner peace, and the ability to keep moving forward even when the world tells you to quit. That's your unfair advantage. Would you like me to expand the next keynote or continue with the full speech structure? A lot of people wear hustle like a badge of honor. We've been taught that the more you grind, the more you win. And yes, hard work does matter. But what if I told you that hustle without vision is just movement without direction? What if the real unfair advantage is not how hard you work, but how clear you are about where you're going and why? Clarity of vision beats blind effort every time. You can wake up at 5 a.m., work 16-hour days, burn through checklists, and still feel like you're running in circles. Why? Because energy without alignment leads to exhaustion. We've all had seasons where we were busy but not effective, productive but not fulfilled. That's what happens when we skip the step that matters most: getting clear on our vision. Vision isn't a nice poster on the wall. It's not a dream you write in a notebook and forget. It's a roadmap, a filter, a compass. When you know where you're headed, every decision becomes easier. You don't just ask what's next, you ask, does this move me closer to the future I've committed to creating? And that single shift saves you years of waste, energy. Most people don't have a clarity problem, they have a distraction problem. They chase too many things, they try to please too many people, they follow trends instead of purpose. But the people who win in the long game aren't the ones doing everything. They're the ones doing the right things with laser focus. They have the courage to say no, to delay gratification, and to stay in alignment with their vision even when it's unpopular. Here's something I've learned from interviewing some of the most successful athletes, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the world. Every one of them is radically clear on who they are and what they're building. They don't get lucky, they get specific. And that clarity becomes their edge. It's what helps them move with intention instead of impulse. It's what helps them recover from fail quicker because they're not questioning their identity every time they hit a wall. They know what they're here for. Clarity brings confidence, and confidence creates momentum. When you're clear on your vision, you don't second guess yourself every step of the way. You trust your direction. You trust your process. You start taking actions that are aligned, not just impressive. And that alignment compounds financially, emotionally, spiritually. It becomes your advantage in business, in relationships, in life. But let's get practical. How do you get that kind of clarity? It starts with questions, not surface level ones, but deep ones. What do you value? What legacy do you want to leave? What kind of life feels meaningful to you, not what looks good on social media? The more specific you get, the more power you unlock. Vague goals produce vague results. Clear goals create focused actions. This isn't about having every step figured out. Clarity isn't about knowing exactly how you'll get there. It's about knowing where there is. The steps will evolve, the strategy will change, but the vision, that needs to be your anchor, because when life gets chaotic, and it will, you need something solid to hold on to. A why that's bigger than comfort, bigger than opinions, bigger than fear. Think of clarity like a lens. When it's foggy, everything feels overwhelming. But when you clean that lens, when you remove the noise and distraction, things come into focus. You stop comparing, you stop drifting, you move from reaction to intention, from hustle to purpose. There's a quote I love that says, people with goals succeed because they know where they're going. But I take that even deeper. People with vision lead because they don't just know where they're going, they know why they're going. That's the difference between short-term success and sustainable impact, between burning out and breaking through. At the end of the day, clarity doesn't remove the hard work, it just gives it meaning. You still have to put in the effort, but now it's effort that moves the needle. Effort that matters. When you're clear on your vision, your hustle isn't desperate, it's directed. And that direction becomes your secret weapon. The world doesn't need more busy people, it needs more clear people. People who know who they are, what they stand for, and where they're headed. Because when you combine vision with action, you don't just move, you lead. And that, my friend, gives you an advantage most people will never understand. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote or start crafting the full speech? We live in a world that moves fast. Technology evolves, industries shift, and new ideas emerge daily. And yet, most people stop learning the moment they finish school. They treat graduation as the end of growth, not the beginning. That's where the gap starts. Because in today's world, the true advantage belongs to the lifelong learner, the person who chooses to grow, adapt, and sharpen their mind long after the classroom is over. Here's what most people don't understand. Learning isn't just about acquiring new information, it's about increasing your value. It's about stacking skills, developing insight, expanding your capacity to contribute. And when you commit to doing that consistently, even in small doses, it compounds over time, just like investing money. If you put in a little every day, it grows beyond anything you imagined. I've interviewed world-class performers, Olympians, CEOs, New York Times bestsellers, and they all have one thing in common. They never stop learning. They read, they study, they ask questions, they stay curious. They know that learning isn't a phase, it's a lifestyle. And because of that, they constantly evolve. While most people stay stuck in the same patterns, hoping life will change, these people keep upgrading themselves and the results reflect it. But here's the key, consistency. Anyone can read a book once in a while. Anyone can go to a seminar, get fired up for a week, and then go back to their old routine. That's not what gives you an edge. The unfair advantage comes when you make learning a daily habit. When you decide that every single day you're going to feed your mind something that stretches you, that's when growth becomes unstoppable. Imagine learning just one new idea a day. It could be a new business insight, a deeper understanding of relationships, a strategy for managing your emotions better, just one idea. That's 365 ideas in a year. Over a decade, that's 650 insights that most people around you never took the time to gain. That's how you separate yourself, not with giant leaps, but with small, consistent steps that compound. Now here's the beautiful thing. We live in the best time in history to be a learner. You've got access to books, podcasts, online courses, YouTube channels, mentors. You don't need a fancy degree anymore to learn something valuable. You just need the willingness to invest. Time, attention, and humility. And I say humility because real learning requires you to admit what you don't know. It requires you to unlearn outdated beliefs, question your assumptions, and stretch beyond your comfort zone. The people who refuse to learn, they get left behind, not because they aren't talented, but because they stop growing. They let their ego get in the way. They'd rather be right than be better. That's dangerous in a world that never stops moving. If you're not growing, you're falling behind. That's the reality. But here's the exciting part. When you do commit to learning, the results show up everywhere. You become more creative. You become a better communicator. You see opportunities other people miss. You solve problems faster. You connect with others more deeply. You start to lead, not just follow, because you bring insight and clarity to the table that others don't have. Learning also builds confidence, not arrogance, confidence. The kind that says, I might not know it yet, but I can learn it. That mindset makes you fearless. It means you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to know how to find them. That's the mindset of a leader. That's the mindset of someone who grows no matter what life throws at them. I want you to understand this. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is transformation. Don't just collect ideas. Use them. Try them. Experiment. Reflect. That's how learning becomes wisdom. And wisdom, more than anything, is what the world needs. So ask yourself, what are you learning right now that's making you better? What skill are you developing that your future self will thank you for? What challenge that you're growing through that's expanding your mental strength? Because in the end, it's not the smartest people who win. It's the ones who keep learning, keep adapting, and keep showing up curious. That mindset of consistent, intentional learning is the quiet force that will give you an unfair advantage in every area of your life. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote or begin assembling the full speech? We talk a lot about physical fitness. We admire athletes for their strength, speed, and endurance. We dedicate time, energy, and money to getting our bodies in shape, and that's important. But there's another kind of fitness that doesn't get nearly enough attention, and yet it might be even more powerful. It's emotional fitness. See, life isn't just a physical game, it's an emotional one. It's not just about what happens to you, but how you respond to what happens to you. And that response is driven not by talent, not by IQ, not by your resume, but by your ability to regulate your emotions in the moment. That's why emotional fitness is a superpower, because while most people are constantly being pushed and pulled by their feelings, the emotionally fit stay grounded. They stay focused. They make decisions from a place of power, not pressure. Let me break it down. Emotional fitness isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's not about suppressing your feelings or faking positivity. It's about building the strength to face your emotions honestly, process them fully, and choose your response instead of reacting on autopilot. And just like going to the gym, it's something you have to train. Think about it when life hits you with disappointment, rejection, uncertainty. How do you respond? Do you spiral into anger or self-doubt? Or do you pause, breathe, and respond with intention? Most people haven't been taught how to do that. We're taught how to solve equations, memorize dates, and follow instructions, but we're not taught how to manage our inner world. That's why emotional fitness gives you an edge, because when chaos hits, and it always does, you don't crumble, you lead. One of the biggest shifts I've seen in my own life came when I stopped being a prisoner of my emotions and started becoming a coach to them. I stopped letting fear control my choices. I stopped letting anger ruin relationships. I stopped letting anxiety drive my actions. And instead I learned to observe what I was feeling without letting it define me. That shift changed everything. Here's the truth. Emotions are powerful messengers, but terrible masters. They'll try to run your life if you don't build the strength to lead them. Emotional fitness means you feel your emotions, but you don't feed them. You acknowledge the sadness, the frustration, the fear, but you don't let it derail your values, your focus, or your peace. And it's not just about staying calm during the hard moments. It's also about expanding your capacity for joy, connection, and empathy. Emotional fitness makes you a better friend, a better leader, a better partner, because you learn to listen without judgment. You learn to communicate without ego. You learn to hold space for others without trying to fix or control them. That's rare, and rare is valuable. Here's where it gets even more powerful. Emotional fitness isn't just reactive, it's proactive. You can train it before the crisis hits. You can build your emotional muscles through journaling, meditation, breath work, therapy, reflection. You can develop daily habits that increase your awareness, strengthen your self-talk, and reinforce your emotional resilience. That way, when the pressure comes, you don't break. You rise. The truth is, we admire people who stay composed under pressure. We look up to leaders who can make hard decisions with grace, but we rarely ask, how did they become that way? The answer is, they trained for it. They practiced stillness, they studied themselves, they did the internal work, and the world sees the results, but not the reps it took to get there. Emotional fitness gives you freedom. It means your peace isn't at the mercy of your circumstances. It means you don't need external validation to feel worthy. It means you can walk into any room, face any situation, and remain centered because your power comes from within. Imagine walking through life knowing that no matter what happens, good or bad, you have the tools to process it, grow through it, and keep moving forward. That's what this gives you. That's what makes it unfair. Because while others are stuck reacting to life, you're creating it. While others are overwhelmed by emotion, you're harnessing it as fuel. This isn't a one-time decision. It's a lifelong practice. But if you commit to it, if you build this kind of inner strength, you won't just survive life's challenge, you'll lead through them. And that kind of emotional strength, that's a superpower the world desperately needs. Would you like me to continue with the 5th keynote or begin outlining the full speech now? We often hear the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But let's take that even deeper. It's not just who you know, it's who you become. Through the people you surround yourself with, your network isn't just a list of contacts. It's an ecosystem that shapes your beliefs, expands your perspective, and accelerates your growth if you build it intentionally. Look around at your 5 closest relationships. Do they challenge you to grow? Do they call you to a higher standard, or do they drain your energy, keep you small, and reinforce limiting beliefs? Because here's the truth. Your environment will either pull you forward or hold you back. And the people in your life are the biggest part of that environment. What most people miss is that your network doesn't just affect your opportunities, it affects your mindset. When you spend time with people who think bigger, who take ownership, who dream boldly and act with discipline, that energy rubs off on you. Suddenly things that once felt impossible begin to feel achievable. Not because you changed your circumstances, but because you changed your conversations. One of the most pivotal moments in my life came when I started surrounding myself with people who were already playing at the level I wanted to reach. At first it was intimidating. I felt out of place, but that discomfort was my growth zone. Being in proximity to greatness doesn't just inspire you, it demands that you level up. You begin to raise your standards, not because someone told you to, but because you see what's possible with your own eyes. That's why your network growth engine. It speeds up your development and it compresses decades into days. A single conversation with the right person can shift your entire trajectory because they've already walked the path you're on. They know the mistakes, they know the shortcuts, they know the mindset you need to win. And when they share that wisdom with you, it saves you years of trial and error. But here's the catch, you can't just take from your network. You have to add value to it. Great relationships are built on contribution, not convenience. You grow your network by being genuinely interested in others, by showing up with authenticity, and by offering something before asking for something. Whether that's your time, your energy, your skills, or simply your encouragement. Leading with value is what builds trust. This isn't about networking in the traditional transactional sense. It's not about collecting business cards or trying to meet important people. It's about cultivating meaningful relationships rooted in growth, integrity, and shared purpose. When you do that, your network becomes a living, breathing force that elevates everything you do. It becomes your board of advisors, your circle of encouragement, your sounding board when life gets noisy. And in today's world where access is easier than ever, there's no excuse not to build this kind of network. You can connect with mentors through podcasts, learn from leaders through books and interviews, build online communities that hold you accountable. You don't have to be in the same room anymore. You just have to be intentional, be bold, reach out, start the conversation. One of the most powerful habits you form is the habit of asking. Ask for feedback, ask for help, ask how you can serve. Most people are afraid to ask because they're afraid of rejection, but rejection isn't failure, it's feedback. And often the very person you're afraid to approach is the one who can help you take the next leap in your journey. Remember this, you are not meant to do life alone. You are not designed to climb the mountain by yourself. The greatest successes are almost always team efforts. Even the most self-made people will tell you they had mentors, coaches, partners, and a tribe that believed in them before they believed fully in themselves. Your network can see your greatness even when you can't. They can speak life into your vision when you're tired. They can challenge your blind spots, sharpen your thinking, and remind you your why when the world gets loud. That kind of support isn't just helpful, it's essential. So build it, invest in it, protect it, and most importantly, be that person for someone else. Because when you become a growth engine for others, your network grows with power and purpose, and it becomes one of the greatest unfair advantages you'll ever have. Would you like me to continue with the 6th keynote or move on to the structure of the full speech now? We all have dreams. We all have goals. We write them down, we visualize them, we even speak them out loud, hoping the universe will conspire in our favor. But here's the harsh truth. Dreams don't work unless you do. And even more than that, they don't work unless you work on the days you don't feel like it. That's where most people give up. And that's where the ones who achieve greatness separate themselves. The separating factor isn't talent, it's not motivation, it's not even passion, it's discipline. Self-discipline is the gatekeeper between average and excellence. It's the invisible thread that holds every successful person's routine, mindset, and commitment together. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent, especially when it's inconvenient. There's this myth that successful people always feel like doing the hard things, that they're naturally wired to wake up early, eat clean, train daily, execute with precision, and stay focused under pressure. But if you sit down and talk to them, they'll tell you the truth. There are days they don't want to show up. Days when the alarm feels too early, the vision feels too far, and the results aren't coming fast enough. But they show up anyway. That's discipline. Discipline is the ability to act according to what you decided, not what you feel. It's the strength to keep promises to yourself, even when no one is watching. And that's where the real magic happens. Not in the grand, flashy moments, but in the quiet, unseen hours of preparation. When you stay late to learn one more skill, when you skip comfort for growth, when you choose water over excuses. You see, most people wait for motivation to move them. But motivation is inconsistent, it's fleeting. It can be hijacked by a bad mood, a bad day, or even a single negative comment. But discipline is independent of your feelings. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it? It declares, this is who I am and this is what I do. That's what makes it such an unfair advantage. Because while others are starting and stopping, caught in cycles of inspiration and burnout, the discipline just keep moving forward, quietly, relentlessly. They don't need hype. They've built habits. They don't need outside validation. They've built internal standards. That kind of consistency compounds. It builds trust, first with yourself, then with the world around you. And here's the thing, discipline doesn't make your life smaller. It makes your life larger. It gives you access to levels of freedom, creativity, and impact that laziness and chaos can never provide. When you're disciplined, you don't waste energy on regret. You don't live in the land of what ifs. You don't sabotage your future for momentary pleasure. You trade comfort for clarity and comfort for conviction. But don't get it twisted. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about alignment. It's about choosing the behaviors today that are in alignment with the person you're becoming tomorrow. It's saying yes to structure so you can say yes to results. It's saying no to distractions so you can say yes to purpose. Let's make this practical. Discipline is built through routines, through systems, through boundaries. You create structure not to limit yourself, but to free your mind to focus on what matters most. Wake up early, not to prove something, but to gain something, an edge, a window of focus, a head start on your vision. You train your body, not just for aesthetics, but to build mental strength that transfers into every area of your life. Discipline also means doing the small things with excellence, not just when it's exciting, but when it's boring, because that's the difference between amateurs and pros. Amateurs do what they feel like doing. Pros do what needs to be done day in, day out. You want to build confidence? Get disciplined. You want to build credibility with others? Get disciplined. You want to break through that next ceiling in your life or business? Get disciplined. It's the foundation for everything else. Without it, you're a slave to your mood. With it, you become the architect of your destiny. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when it feels like it's not working. That's normal. That's part of the process. But when you're disciplined, you don't quit, you adjust. You don't retreat, you refocus. You keep moving, even if it's slow, because you've made a decision. You're not going to live a life dictated by comfort, but one defined by commitment. Greatness doesn't go to the most talented. It goes to the most disciplined, to the ones who do the work, especially when it's hard, especially when no one's watching, especially when the reward isn't immediate. That's the gate, and discipline is the key. Would you like me to now assemble the full speech using all 6 keynotes in sequence? Absolutely. Here's a powerful conclusion for your speech titled, "This gives you an unfair advantage," written in an educational, motivating style, aligned with Lewis Howes's voice. Now that we've walked through these 6 powerful principles, mastering your morning, building your identity, learning how to learn, training your emotions, nurturing your network, and anchoring your life with discipline, I want you to pause and reflect. These aren't just ideas, they're tools, and when applied daily, consistently, and intentionally, from your advantage in all that you do. You won't become an unfair advantage in a world where most people are reacting, waiting, doubting, and hoping. You won't need to hope when you're prepared. You won't need to fake confidence when it's been earned through effort. You won't fear competition when you've built something others can't see. A foundation rooted in self-mastery. The truth is, nothing I've shared today is out of reach. You don't need a perfect background. You don't need overnight success. You just need to commit to doing the things that most people won't long after the excitement wears off. You already have what it takes, but now you have to train it. Daily habits, daily choices, daily discipline. This is how you transform your potential into power. This is how you stop playing small and start owning your greatness. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are grounded, clear, strong, and prepared to lead. So take this with you. Your advantage is not something you wait for or wish for. It's something you build brick by brick, layer by layer. And one day, while others wonder how you made it look so effortless, you'll smile because you'll know this wasn't luck, this was earned. And that is your unfair advantage.